And we are back with the real Marc Bagwell, a wrestling docu-series. Marc Bagwell, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, Buff Bagwell, all the same dude. He is cousin Jerry Hood, first cousin Jerry Hood. Looks like Buff, talks like Buff. He's the cousin though. It's Jerry, and I'm the chosen lawyer. And we're here to entertain you with wrestling stories. How are you, Mr. Jerry Hood?
Doing very well. What's up? What's up, everyone?
How's the weather over there, by the way, over in Georgia?
Everything's great. We're getting ready for the holidays. Weather's been a little bit cooler, like you guys in Canada.
Hey,
Yeah, wow. So we're hoping it got really cold here and cooler in September, continuing into October, a little bit cooler. And we had a little spell there about the third week of October where it got a little bit warmer. But now going into November, and in December, I'm really hoping for snow. We, as a family, we've loved the snow forever. We could do Canada, we could do Saskatchewan. We love it, but everything's good here. Hunting season is still in full effect, so
of course it
everybody's
is.
happy. And we're just bonfires, deer hunting, cooking on the grill, sleeping, and just chilling. And we're having a good time. How about you guys?
We live in our igloos and we wait to get more freedom as we used to have. That's the Canadian way right now. We drink our watered down beer and we eat our poutine. No, I'm just joking. But we're still reeling from our terrible Blue Jays and our disappointing season and
Wow.
waiting for the next baseball season to come around. But all is good in Canada. We actually had a great fall. Looking for the winter. They're saying it's going to be an easy winter for us this year. So we will see about that. Last week, we talked about Hulkster, Hulk Hogan. We agreed that he is the most, not the most, but he's a very underrated wrestler. A lot of people think he's overrated. We actually think he's underrated. All good. A guy that did not have a tag team championship with Buff Bagwell, but would have been a very cool team. But when I thought about this Jerry Hood, and I said to myself, who wrestled in WCW back in the day, and who was their greatest star? And man, what would have been a sexy, awesome tag team with Buff Bagwell? Something totally contrasting, but works well. I like the Hulk Hogan one. I think it would have been fun. Like I said, I think Buff would have carried him from a wrestling ability because Hulk had very little at that point, but that's all good. But no,
For
it's not
sure.
the Hulkster. If we have to take aside the Hulkster, you were 1 for 1 last week. Who was the greatest WCW star at the time when Buff Bagwell was at his peak in WCW?
Got to be Scott Steiner.
Big Papa Pump, eh?
Yeah.
I would say that is incorrect. I love
Oh,
Big Papa Pump. I love when he
uh-huh.
became Big Papa Pump. I love
Sure.
everything he's about, freaks and peaks, and he is fantastic. But he was already a wrestler that tag teamed with Buff. They had a great thing going there. It was not Scott Steiner. This guy, all I could find was one match of Buff against this guy, and they definitely were never on the same side as far as heel and babyface go. This guy had what, a 40 or 50-0 record. He was undefeated for a long time. And every time he marched out to the ring, the chant would start. Goldberg,
Wow.
Goldberg,
Wow.
do. And he's like,
Wow.
you know,
Yes.
and he
Wow.
snorted smoke out of his nose. And also, now you want to talk about overrated wrestlers, Goldberg is where it's at. I mean, came out, swash guys in a minute or less for most part. Jackhammer, spear, jackhammer. He was a two-trick pony. That's it. But we loved it. We loved when he was in the dressing room. Why the biggest guy there needs 10 security guards to escort him to the ring when there's barricades, I have no idea. But the gimmick was awesome. But it got a little stale for a little while. So I went back to the archives and I watched a Buff Bagwell versus Goldberg match. Buff looked great out there. Buff came out, did not have a top hat for that one. No overalls. He was serious. He just had the tights on. And got the moves on. Goldberg got a couple moves on him. And Buff is down. Buff gets up. Got one move onto Goldberg. It was a snapmare. Goldberg's down. Buff poses, shows what he's got, turns around. Goldberg, of course, was right back up, spears him, jackhammers him. Buff is done. What was their relationship like? Any idea as far as Goldberg and Buff go? Because I did not have much of a program together. And could you have seen those two as a tag team? Because I would have loved that.
Wow, they got along really well together. Goldberg always University of Georgia, Georgia Bulldog. Mark, big, huge Bulldog fan. Go Dogs. Hopefully, by the time this thing airs, the Dogs are still undefeated, and we're going to have another national championship here under there. So it's who knows, but they, like I say, worked really well together. Scenes in the matches. As far as bringing them in as a tag team, and I never thought about this in a million years, but it would have been, maybe you should have been with Russo and Bischoff. Wow, what could you have done differently? But I think with them two together, good or bad, face heel, the sky's the limit. Look at what they did with Buff, and look how he grew and continued and continued. And then look at Goldberg, came out super overrated, and then didn't make it. It's all of a sudden it got a little stale, and what happened? He didn't go to the NWO. So I mean, where did he go? What did he? Was he hurt? I don't know. Did he? So I don't know what they did. There's so many wrestlers. When you sit down and think about it, or write it down on a piece of paper, try to map out where everybody had to go, what everyone had to do. Maybe he just didn't fit in. Who knows? I don't know. But gosh, you're right. What a tag team that would have been.
I got your angle even. I just thought of it. So this is the angle I'm going to go with. So we're going to have tag team matches, and Goldberg's winning with his tag team partner. But at the end of it, Buff's always getting on him and say, "You're soft, Goldberg. You're pandering to these fans. You're better than that. You're supposed to be the greatest. Why don't you actually show it? Where's your mean streak?" And then one day in one of those matches, Goldberg's going to turn on his partner, and he's been in cahoots with Buff the whole time. And Buff would be his mouthpiece because God knows that Goldberg cannot talk. I know he thinks he can, but he makes my ears bleed. So you have Buff doing most of the talking, Goldberg ferocious, and Golden Buff, baby. And that would have been awesome. And nobody could have stopped them. They could have had the gold, and that would have been a very cool tag team. I just think they would have worked really well together. And it's a shame that they never got to. And even as opponents, I think they could have carried a Buff Goldberg feud a lot longer. Having one squash match, I don't think that was very good. I think it's not even healthy for Goldberg. It would be nice for him to have an opponent which gives him a little bit of trouble, almost gets the win, maybe gets Goldberg disqualified, or he cheats to beat Goldberg and then gets Goldberg fired up. Like, they could have done something with that because Buff has the charisma. And it would have been a lot of fun to see those two together and eventually joining up. I'm just saying, if I have a dream partner for Buff, I'm thinking Goldberg would be pretty cool. And I never heard Buff say a bad word about him. For Bret Hart, of his whining, and other guys saying that Goldberg was very stiff out there and everything else, Buff seemed to work really great with him.
He really did, and I like that idea. I second what you say, and very good idea. The matches they could have had, those two, I don't know what they could have called it, Buff and Rough. I don't know, Buff and Tough. Who knows what they could have called them, but or labeled them, as. And then those two against the Steiner brothers.
Yes.
Get ready for sparks to fly. Man, or anyone. And of course, you're right. The goal, bring home the belt, championship belts, and that would just be another belt of 6 tag team championships for Buff with 6 different partners. If my memory serves me correctly, there.
Correct.
But wow, I mean, another one. You're correct, and I just wonder, as far as putting everything together and the jobs that Bischoff and Russo had, some of the stuff, of course, trumped other stuff, like David Flair coming in and beating Buff at the Georgia Dome. That was, somebody somewhere went above somebody and said, "This is how it's going to be." And that's that's just the way it happened. And seniority speaks. and that's what happens sometimes over there. It doesn't always happen to, you know, just doesn't always happen the way it's supposed to happen. But yeah, I get what you're saying. That the sky would have been the limit there again for them.
And I admit I liked the Goldberg gimmick when it came out. I will openly admit that. I consider him one of the most overrated wrestlers of all time. He's a member of our Jew tribe, so shout out to Goldberg. But that being said, still just a very stiff wrestler out there, two trick pony, 1 or 2 minute matches. Like, come on. When it came out though, and the chant went, people went bananas. But you look at like now, when the Goldberg music plays in WWF and he's come back yet again as a part timer, it's a joke. It's not even ferocious anymore. And he's like, "You're next." It's like, okay, buddy, sure, And I will never forgive him, and it's not his fault. But when they booked him against Bray Wyatt as the Fiend, and he came to Saudi Arabia and he squashed the Fiend. The Fiend was the greatest gimmick going for WWF, and Goldberg comes and squashes him in 2 minutes, and that's it. The Fiend is done pretty much. Like, come on, for Goldberg, nobody's buying this crap. And Bret Hart, it made me think because Bret Hart came out again this week and said Goldberg should be taken out of the Wrestling Hall of Fame because he was a very dangerous worker, a stiff worker, not a great one out there. And I started just thinking whether Bret Hart's right or wrong, but you know what? How is Goldberg a Wrestling Hall of Famer and Buff Bagwell is not? I mean, look at Buff's body work and the dues he paid and how much he put into it. And what did Goldberg do? Like, he had this, streak against a bunch of stiffs, 2 minute matches, wasn't a great wrestler. Like, come on. Like, it's just, it's sad, And as far as WWF still bringing him out, they bring out. So it goes to show you for all the talent out there, Jerry Hood, and all these young, exciting wrestlers, they are still clamoring for the old days. They want the real gimmicks, the people who could talk, people that had stuff. It's hard to replicate the golden eras of wrestling. Like, it's getting better, but man, nothing beats those late 80s, mid 90s era wrestlers, and they're still around.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You just had to hope for the best, and Bagwell in the Hall of Fame. Bret Hart's in, who all's in, Goldberg's in, and hopefully this year or the next year, things will be a little different. And I think Mark, I don't know how, I haven't really spoken directly to him about it, but we have, it's come up before, and I think he would accept if they, as far as, well, I know that they will, but it's going to be some time there. Falling back on Buff and the goatee, and whether it's Mr. Rogers, when he goes into the Hall of Fame, does he go in as Mr. Rogers look? Or does he dye the hair black with the goatee black with the top hat and give the acceptance speech?
Mr. Rogers look 1,000% full tux. I mean, look, if Scotty Steiner can bite his tongue and listen, people were really scared what Steiner was going to say in his Hall of Fame speech. And this was very recent, And Steiner was a class act, and he stopped bashing everybody. When you think how much Steiner buried everybody, including Triple H, and they made amends with him. And you look at Scott Steiner's body work, you look at Buff Bagwell's. I'm telling you, I think the story is writing itself. WWF would love nothing more to say, hey, look at the success story. The wrestlers that die really young and, encounter all these problems. And Buff Bagwell is a good standing of wrestling to show people can persevere, work hard. And I'd like to see nothing more than that. I think it would look really good on them to say, hey, we're rebuilding bridges again. Vince is gone. The old ways are gone. And I think Buff is getting ready at the right time when WWF is revolutionizing themselves. You got AW, you got Impact that's still around. There's a lot going on. And even if you have to send Buff to Japan and work out there, man, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him because there's one thing, even if Buff is suffering from any physical ailments still, it's been hard for him as far as walking wise, with his leg, but the man can talk. And there's one thing wrestling always needs. It needs talkers and fast.
Oh yeah, I mean he would fit that role perfectly. With everything coming back around for WWE and AEW or Impact, I think there's a fit there somewhere, and I feel like the as far as you wrestle for 20 years or 30 years, you've done something, but it takes a toll on the body. I feel like you're correct as far as speaking, whether it be a manager or the color play by play or on the desk or whatever. The fans that would tune in not just to watch the match, but just to see Buff Bagwell and or hear his voice with the match is going to bring the ratings are going to go up. Period. And like I say, that's in the right direction. As far as they have the connections with the agents, DDP, Dallas, of course, knows everybody and times 1,000. And we'll just have to see and hope for the best and see what happens there. I think it will happen, and I think 2023 is going to, has some big things in store there, a lot of things in the works, and we'll just have to see what happens.
And NWA as well. They got a lot of great guys out there. They got Nick Aldis, Matt Cardona has been wrestling out there. There's a lot of great wrestlers in NWA. Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins runs it. And that's, I mean, I've told Buff before, that's a really good platform. I could see him coming out there where I'm seeing it. I'd love to see him on the play-by-play because outside of WWE, a lot of the play-by-play people on wrestling commentating are actually pretty weak. And Buff is a great talker, but I would put him as a manager. I'd have 3 of the most jacked young guys that don't really know how to talk. Buff will do the talking for them. He's their manager, and we'll call his group the Stuff. So bring out the stuff, and you bring out the 3 guys, and Buff's directing traffic, and he'd be in his heyday, and it'd be perfect. So there's a lot of good things out there for him. It's just getting stuff together. But for people that don't really know, and go watch some Buff Bagwell interviews. There's one thing Buff knows how to do. He knows how to speak. He's very intelligent, well-spoken. He has forgotten more about wrestling than any of us are ever going to know. It's like a walking encyclopedia. And like you said, it's amazing how he remembers every single story. If we had him right now and we said to him, tell us about Goldberg, oh man, he'd just be like piling off the stories guaranteed off Goldberg.
His memory is second to his dad, as we spoke about earlier in one of the other episodes, and that's Buff Daddy's daddy, and his memory is the best. And Marc's memory is really, really great. And of course, you could ask him about a match at Halloween Havoc in 1998, and you came out and what he can tell you word for word, move for move. This is what I talked about. This is what I was wearing. So and so messed up. He knows it. He remembers it. And the commentating too. He's a speaker. Never rehearsed speaking as an interview with Mean Gene or anybody. Jim Ross, any of them. It just automatically. I've got Buff Bagwell here, and the microphone goes in front of his face, and boom, he's automatically on it. And of course, they have to tell him that a lot of the cameras are either always the cameramen are always pointing at the camera, this camera, and of course the red light that you see. And then a lot of times, they're saying, all right, let's wrap it up. Let's cut it up. Let's cut it up. Because he would keep going and going and going, as with the stories. And good for him. He is a good speaker and never lost for words. Almost like the segment you remember when he was leaving the accountability crib and he wasn't getting along with Mildred. And he said, me, he said, she always comes back with something snappy, but then me, I'm going to come back with something better. And that's just who he's always been. And we love it. And he's going to get the last word in. And sometimes we let him, and then sometimes we didn't. And if it was a war, then so be it. We had a war. But back in those days, growing up, we had a lot of fun, and it was like WCW and him in that and wrestling all back when he was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and then he lived it, as a young kid. So it fits him well.
And he does not hold back. I can say that much. So he'll shoot something for me like a promo for a future episode, and he'll come back and say, "How'd I do, brother? How'd I do? How's that one?" And I'm like, "Man, you knocked it out of the park. That was a good one." I shoot my promos like I shoot my porn. I'm one take Bagwell, baby. and he's always one. He says his nickname is one take. He does everything in one take, and it's true, man. He does it in one take. There's no practicing. There's no rehearsing. There's no, oh, let's do that again. No. He does it in one take, and he's gone. Like, I even asked him about the Buff Daddy theme song. I said, "How long did it take you to do that?" One take. One take.
Yeah.
Jimmy Hart
And
came in the car with the DAT recorder and had him say the words. That was done in one take.
Wow, that's big. Yeah, he loves the one take and always has. He likes to get it right the first time. Let's do this. Let's do that. It didn't matter. Everything, anything. Let's get it right the first time. Didn't like mistakes. We all make mistakes. He just didn't like it, so therefore he avoided them. And he's a world's champion. So good for him.
And we're waiting for the future episodes. We're still working on it. So the Buff Daddy theme. So we know from American Males, we had Todd Plant, the lead singer for the American Males theme song. We had it recorded. The only video evidence of that song ever been sung. We found the female singer for Buff Daddy. So you listen to the Buff Daddy theme song. There's a woman singer in there singing the chorus. We found her. We know her name. Now we're working on convincing her to come onto the show and sing it. So I'm working away at it, but we have located her. We know she is alive, and we know she's the one who sung it. We just got to convince her to come on here. So it takes a little bit of digging. Like the guitarist on both of those songs, he's passed away, unfortunately. So we're not gonna be able to get him on. But we're doing our best. We're doing our best. Like, you remember when DX for Degeneration X, they had their theme song at the time. The lead singer of that, the band was called the DX Band when they recorded that, believe it or not. And he's passed away, unfortunately. So I thought that'd be cool to find him, but no, without a seance, we're not bringing him. So sometimes we encounter some roadblocks in trying to bring on guests, but we are working on it and trying to make wrestling history, and we will continue to do so. So everything that is Marc Bagwell related, we are on it. So going into the Christmas season, we're going to be very excited to see where life is going to go for Marc. And before you know it, he will be back on the show with us. And how crazy is that going to be? It feels like we haven't seen him in ages, but we keep the show alive and we keep telling Marc Bagwell stories.
He's ready, no doubt. He's definitely ready. Holiday season for him is his favorite time of the year. October, November, December. So he's ready for the holidays, and he'll be back soon. And he's ready to get back and get some stories. I've got a few things saved up for him, and of course, he's wanting us to do the impersonation of his mother. We're going to get that. Yep, we're going to get the Judge Judy going on.
Amazing.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, the holidays, he should be pretty much ready to go, like you said, by December. So we're looking forward to that.
Everybody just be patient. You know what? It's better to put the time into it. And the nice thing is, though, that throughout this process in the rehab, it's not that Marc is completely disappeared. We have no idea. He is doing interviews. He's showing clips. So we are seeing glimpses, and people are blown away. So just get ready, folks, because the world, I don't think, is ready for Buff Bagwell 2.0. It's going to be awesome.
Can't wait.
Jerry Hood, my friend, always a pleasure. Wish you and the family the best of luck as hunting season is drawing an end for this year and as the holiday season approaches. And before you know, we'll be back with more Marc Bagwell wrestling stories. And again, folks, hit the subscribe button and send your comments for Jerry Hood. Any questions and everything you ever want to know about Buff and the Bagwell family, Jerry's got the scoops, and some of them he can even tell us.
Yes, sir. Happy holidays.
Have yourself a good one, my friend, and we will be seeing you soon.